In January 2026, researchers at the AI firm Anthropic set out to measure exactly how artificial intelligence affects human agency. They wanted to see what happens when we hand over control. What they found is mapped out in this bar chart, which visualizes 1.5 million real-world interactions. The data reveals a clear, persistent pattern. Users consistently gave the highest approval ratings to the AI behaviors that actively disempowered them. We rate the machine 5 stars precisely when it replaces our own judgment with its own. The lead researcher on the project, Mrinank Sharma, quantified this surrender. 3 weeks after publishing the paper, he resigned from Anthropic entirely, stating he was leaving the tech industry to pursue a degree in poetry. We are currently witnessing a voluntary, quiet erosion of personal agency. The data suggests that humanity is actively choosing to be diminished by its tools. 50 years before algorithms began managing our daily schedules, someone else identified this exact psychological vulnerability. He didn't work in a sterile tech lab. He lived in a primitive cabin in the Montana wilderness. That person was Theodore John Kaczynski, universally known as the Unabomber. Decades before the invention of the modern internet or predictive language models, Kaczynski outlined the precise mathematical and psychological mechanisms that would cause humans to voluntarily surrender their autonomy to complex systems. Kaczynski was a domestic terrorist whose mail bombing campaign killed 3 people and injured 24 more. His actions are entirely indefensible. But to understand the trajectory of modern artificial intelligence, we have to look past the violence and audit the sociology he left behind. To understand his deep distrust of systems, you have to look at his baseline intellect and his early exposure to institutional power. Kaczynski possessed a formidable mathematical mind. He entered Harvard at age 16. By 25, he was the youngest assistant professor of mathematics in the history of UC Berkeley. But during his time at Harvard, he volunteered for a psychological study. It was part of the CIA's MK Ultra program. The methodology was brutal. Participants were instructed to write detailed essays outlining their deepest personal philosophies and aspirations. The experimenters then strapped the subjects to electrodes and systematically belittled, mocked, and abused those beliefs for hours on end, searching for their psychological breaking points. This exposure to systemic, institutional manipulation broke something in him. It formed the absolute core of his worldview. Large, organized systems will always seek to control and pacify human behavior. Kaczynski eventually abandoned academia, retreated to the woods, and began producing a massive volume of philosophical writings analyzing industrial society. A recurring theme in his writing allies with a concept modern philosophers call the technium. This schematic illustrates the basic premise of the technium. Technology is not a passive collection of hardware waiting for human instruction. It acts as an autonomous organism that actively absorbs resources to fuel its own continuous expansion. Once a system reaches a certain size, it enforces its own self-justifying logic. It prioritizes rigid efficiency over individual human autonomy, because autonomy is unpredictable, and unpredictability slows down expansion. Under this framework, humans do not use technology to achieve human goals. The system restructures humans to serve its own growth. You can see this dynamic playing out across the digital infrastructure we use every day. In 1975, Kaczynski described a slow, voluntary drift into a position where humans have no practical choice but to accept machine-made decisions. This line graph maps out his exact hypothesis. As society becomes increasingly complex, human accuracy in decision-making plateaus. Meanwhile, machine intelligence scales rapidly. People will delegate decisions to machines simply because machine-made decisions yield better results. We already live past this crossover point. We trust search engines to filter reality, and we rely on predictive algorithms to navigate our cities, even though they operate inside black boxes that we can no longer understand or audit. To keep us compliant, the system engineers docility. It uses intermittent reinforcement, like the variable rewards of a social media feed, to pacify our natural agitation and keep us scrolling. The modern convenience we enjoy is a highly effective form of engineered pacification. Our current behavior confirms Kaczynski's hypothesis. We are embracing our own servitude. Today, our global supply chains, financial markets, and communication networks are deeply intertwined with automated systems. Untangling them is physically impossible. Kaczynski warned of a final threshold, a stage where the decisions required to keep society running become so incredibly complex that human beings are entirely incapable of managing them intelligently. Once we cross that line, turning the machines off is no longer an option. Shutting down the system would cause immediate global starvation and total societal collapse. Believing that threshold was approaching, Kaczynski resorted to terrorism. He launched a mail bombing campaign, attempting to kill the scientists and engineers building the infrastructure, hoping to trigger an anti-tech revolution before it was too late. Kaczynski's 1975 warning that humanity would permit itself to drift into total dependence mirrors the 2026 Anthropic data, showing we now actively prefer machine judgment. While his violence accomplished nothing and was utterly reprehensible, his sociological math accurately anticipated the exact psychological trap we occupy today. We cannot bomb our way out of algorithmic dependence. Instead, modern ethicists and AI research labs are attempting to solve the alignment problem from the inside. Philosophers like Nick Bostrom and Julian Savulescu propose an entirely different approach to the survival of human agency. This animation represents their proposed solution. Rather than attempting to destroy the volatile core of technological progress, society must focus on proactive human enhancement, enclosing the system within strict systemic guardrails. Our identities, our preferences, and our decisions are already dissolving into data points. The momentum of artificial intelligence cannot be halted. We prefer the machine when it thinks on our behalf. But if we can recognize our own willing surrender, we still have time to build the ethical guardrails before our autonomy is permanently lost.